Steam Machine, one of Valve's announced hardware releases that they're going to be doing, that is an exciting option when you want to play console gaming, or at least have a console gaming experience with the vast library that Steam brings to the PC already and to the Steam Deck. But what's going to be the cost? I know the cost, and I'm going to share it with you right now in this video. Now, did I get any insider information? No. I use common sense and, of course, research to let you guys know what is the price going to be for the Steam Machine, at least one of their models, and see where they go from there. If you're new to this channel, definitely consider subscribing. I like to talk about nostalgic games and games that come back to life. So if you like that type of stuff, definitely consider subscribing. And I like to talk about gaming industry stuff too. And the Steam Machine is one of the things that I really am excited about and I wanted to share with you. Now, I've got my Steam Deck hooked up to my PC, and I'm using it to give you kind of like a simulation of what an experience with the Steam Machine might actually be if you're looking to buy it at home, because thoughts are it's going to use the Steam OS, and Steam OS is already on the Steam Deck, and you're going to get a similar type of experience, probably a lot faster and a lot more optimized, but still a similar experience to what you get when you hook up the Steam Deck to like a television, and going from there. Now let's get right down to the nitty-gritty. What's the price going to be and why I think it's going to be that? Now, the Steam Deck in itself, when it launched, it had several price points based on storage, with the highest price point being $650 for a 1 terabyte very fast hard drive with an anti-glare screen and then premium packaging. And then the cheapest version of the Steam Deck was $399, and it basically came with 64 gigabytes of internal memory and then a standard screen, and then still you've got a case. So it was still a nice package, and the fact that you can expand it with a micro SD, pretty good. Actually, most of my games are on micro SD and they run great, so no complaints there. I got the mid-tier version, which was a little over $500 back when it was launched, but now we've got the Steam Machine, which is said to have two versions, a 512 gigabyte version and a 1 terabyte version. Now, everyone's asking what's the price, because Valve themselves actually said, you know what, we're going to compare it to PC pricing, not so much console pricing. Now, with today's current consoles, we're used to prices anywhere between the $300 to, let's say, max $600 range, except if we're talking pro-level consoles, which actually can exceed that. But you're still getting a lot of power for a cheap cost. And that power is actually expensive for the hardware manufacturers to do, but they're able to make their money back. So they'll sell it at a loss, but they can make their money back with software sales because of the whole licensing that they've got going to be able to sell games on their consoles. And that, of course, affects the profitability of the company, especially when they start to sell a lot of games, really exclusive games on the consoles themselves, which makes them money. But when you're talking PC, especially when it comes to Steam, you can play these games on basically anything, right? Anything that can actually play PC games, you can play off of the Steam store, which is a really good advantage for Valve because they're able to put their store on so many platforms, and they're really taking it to the next level. Now, when they released the Steam Deck, they were able to standardize hardware so that game makers and publishers could actually look at that hardware, PC hardware, and finally be like, you know what? A lot of people are going to own this hardware. Let's make custom configurations for this type of hardware and actually launch it. Makes things a ton easier. Now, this isn't Valve's first attempt at a console. They did one like near 10 years ago, but that didn't do well. And Valve did the important research that they needed to do and then try to regroup and then create something that actual people will get excited about. When they created the Steam Deck, that's what actually brought a lot of excitement, and they really cared about that console, and it did well. So now with this Steam Machine, and as some people have lovingly called it, the GabeCube, this is going to be like a next try to really bring a standardized hardware configuration to the PC market so that developers can actually have something that they can benchmark and go from there, without relying on consoles, because a lot of game publishers would see how far consoles can go, develop their games around the technical capabilities of that, then port it to PCs, and then keep the graphics at similar rates. So it was really dependent on console manufacturers on where the gaming industry was going. But now that you have a Steam machine that is using PC gaming, and it's going to do it pretty well from what they've got it at, hopefully a good price, you're going to see a lot of publishers saying, hey, you know what? It just makes sense to develop on PC. But thankfully, consoles themselves have a very familiar architecture for their CPUs that makes porting between PC and those game consoles very easy. And let's not talk about Microsoft and saying, hey, you know what? We're just going to make our next console a PC that themselves and calling it Magnus. Of course, Magnus. They'll probably call it something else, but the fact that they're calling Magnus means that they are subscribed to my channel, and I hope that you do too. But like I said, without further ado, what's the price going to be? And here's how I know the price. Now, I've watched videos like Linus's Tech Tips. I've watched his videos. I've watched videos like Yong Ye and them talking about the pricing and what prices should be versus what prices are going to be. Now, what prices should be, honestly, for a Steam machine, $600. It may not be as powerful as the PlayStation 5 Pro, but it still has a ton of advantages when it comes to the console market, or at least giving you that console experience with PC games. For example, you can basically plug and play like other console manufacturers, where you start in Steam and then you're right in the gaming experience and you've got tons of games that you can play. But not only that, it has the advantage of a lot of people who would buy it and potentially looking into it probably already have a Steam library. So when they actually purchase this console and plug it in for the first time, they're going to have a ton of games ready to play on it. When other console manufacturers, you have to buy the console and then of course buy one or two games that are for the console so that you can take advantage. This is launching with thousands of games already in its library. Which brings up another point. The fact that you can play games that came out 10, 20 years ago on Steam and on this console, where other consoles don't have that ability without either reselling you that software or coming in it from a different direction. This is a huge advantage that you can get from the Steam machine that you can't get with other consoles, because they try to resell you the same games that you probably already own over and over again, or remaster it, or give it an HD version, or whatever they want to call it. Here, with Steam, you just have everything already at your fingertips, potentially hundreds of thousands of games if you already own them. And another thing, online play is free, completely free, where that's a forgotten type of mentality that you would get off of your PlayStation 5 or Xbox, or even Nintendo, where you have to pay for online games. On Steam, it's completely free. So there are a lot of advantages that you get when you purchase the Steam machine. With that said, the price at $600 would be an incredible bargain because of all those advantages that do work to save you money. You don't have that subscription cost anymore. You don't have to purchase one or two games just to play a game on the new system, because you might already own so many games on it already that you can play. And the huge library of free-to-play games is there. So you could get started even if you don't have a predetermined Steam library, and then grow from there with like portable gaming like the Steam Deck and other options. You're set. So again, trying to get back into the pricing, the hardware consideration in itself, even though it's being custom built on the Steam machine itself, you still have to consider the fact that it's going to cost Valve money, and they probably don't want to lose that money. I watched the videos like I mentioned before, but I also entered into ChatGPT, and I entered what would it cost to build a similar type of machine. And ChatGPT came at me with CPU, $160, GPU, $210, motherboard, $95, the RAM, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, $115, a 1 terabyte drive, SSD, $80, a power supply around $55 to $65, case, $50, and then a Wi-Fi card if necessary. If the motherboard doesn't have it, another $30. So an estimate around $800, and we're talking on the cheap as you can go. Now, like I said, it's going to have custom hardware that Valve is probably putting in a huge order to be able to get all of that hardware for the development of this case. So they're probably getting it at a discount because they're putting in a purchase order of, like, let's say $500,000 to $1 million to start off with. And those guaranteed sales will, of course, get you a cheaper price point. But with that being said, it's safe to say, and especially when looking at these specs for something similar, and because, of course, Valve said, we're going to have it PC pricing. If you look at that, and I'm looking at PC parts here, it's safe to say that the entry-level Steam machine, or GabeCube, is going to be $800. And when you say, whoa, that's a little too much. When you look at the savings that you get from the games that are more affordable, and you look at the fact that you don't have to pay for online play or any type of subscription service like that, you actually do get your value returned back to you. But then you're saying, well, this is for PC games, and PCs are too complicated for your casual player that's not going to know what to do. Right now, let's simulate what the experience would be when you purchase a Steam machine and you start it up to see if that experience is similar at all to consoles. As you can see my screen here, I've got it on desktop mode right now just to show you the fact that you can use a desktop and use it just like a computer. But this is not the first experience you're going to get when you turn on the system. I've also got my PlayStation 5 controller Bluetooth connected to the Steam Deck, which is, again, going to be similar to the Steam machine. You can hook up PS4 controllers, you can hook up Xbox controllers, which I've got one on the side that I've also got synced to my Steam Deck. This is the experience that you're going to get. And when you're dealing with this experience and you turn it on just to game, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to return to game mode so that you can see what it looks like. Everything, just turn it on, start it up, and then here you go. Now there's the logo starting up. This is what you'd experience if you get the Steam machine as well. Probably a little bit faster, let's be honest. So here's the default screen. Now my controller, I turned off my controller to resync it, turn it on. Boom, I placed the PlayStation button and it immediately syncs to the Steam Deck, or it's going to be the Steam machine. And now I've got an interface where I can browse recently played games. I can see what games I've got in my library. I can play them. If I want to see more, I can go to the side menu, hit library, see all the installed favorite games, play them right here. And it's easy to navigate with a controller, which is the same experience that you're going to get with a Steam machine. Not only that, but I can see all games that I own, install what I want, not install what I don't want. I can see here it says Great on Deck, but you'll probably have an option that says Great on Steam Machine, where you can see games that you own that are compatible and work great with the Steam machine as well. But then I have several collections that I customize myself with my Steam Deck, and what you'll be able to do with the Steam machine, where you can have just different sorts of all of your games, for example. Now here I click Master System for emulation, where you can get, if you want to get that granular. But not everyone's going to do that. But you can emulate games and play systems that you basically wouldn't be able to play because in a sense it's a PC. But if you don't want to tinker with all of that, you can just start one of these games. Like, for example, I'm going to start Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, which I was playing. And it's going to be similar to this, where you have, obviously you see a controller instead of the Steam Deck controller, because you'd be using a handheld controller. The game will start and it runs on Linux with a Proton layer on it. Proton helps translate PC games into being compatible with like Linux, right? I'll lower the volume here so you can hear me a little bit better. But here it is. I can play a Steam game or PC game on a console, kind of similar to what I'm doing right now. And here I go, and honestly, I'm not pushing the graphics too complex, but this is the type of interface on a controller that you're going to get with the Steam machine. And this type of experience is going to be that much more faster and more improved because you're going to have better hardware. So here I am playing a PC game on a television, let's say, right? On a television with no issues. I did have to connect a computer because I'm not using a computer to play this. I'm using just a console that's potentially connected to the TV. And it gives me that experience that I absolutely enjoy. And then when I want to exit, similar to a PlayStation, I just hit that PlayStation button, actually. I hit the middle button, the PlayStation button, and I got right out of it, and I can still navigate to the next game and play it quickly. That's the advantage of having a Steam machine when you actually buy it, but it'll be a lot better to handle higher graphics when compared to the Steam Deck. 6 times the ability of a Steam Deck. And for the casual player, that's all you need. And when you have all of these advantages, $800 actually works itself out to be pretty affordable. Now, the $800 price point, I believe that's going to be for the entry-level version. When it comes to the 1 terabyte version, I believe they're going to not sell it at $1,000 or over. They're going to undercut it to like $950. Have it under $1,000 because from a marketing perspective and from a psychology perspective, adding another digit makes it almost an impossible buy. But not only will they sell it at $950, but they will also, and this is just me speculating, but they will also, if the rumors are true, sell it with Half-Life 3. So you're going to get a premium package, get Half-Life 3 on the upper tier Steam machine. That's what I'm calling, and that's what I believe will happen. But it's up to you. What do you think is going to happen with the Steam machine when it comes to price point and Half-Life 3? Because it makes sense to actually bundle it with the more expensive version. I totally think it will. Now, I think it will help sell at the higher price point if they sell it at $950 with Half-Life 3 bundled in with it. So let me know what you guys think when it comes to that type of price point down below. And as always, you could make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys later.